Hey folks, wanted to do a quick video about sawmills and getting ready to cut these guys up. So when I got this property, I got pretty obsessed with the number and size of trees that exist on the property. And so I did what most people probably do, what most men probably do, and they start looking at sawmills and drooling over sawmills. And it's easy to kind of get caught in this trap. And I found myself getting caught in it, where all of a sudden you want to get new equipment, bigger equipment. You start collecting all of this gear. And my friend Dakota calls it iron disease, which is basically where you get obsessed with getting more and more iron all the time. So I started looking into it. I looked at all the different brands. I started pricing it out. And like I said, I was drooling over the possibility of sawmills. And in the end, I'm really glad that I didn't get one. I found a local sawyer. He has a portable sawmill. He charges $70 an hour. I'm really super happy to pay him that number. He'll bring his sawmill in, work with me for a couple of days. And I guess number one, I'll get to see if I even like it before I go and drop the $10,000 or $15,000 on a mill. And by the way, that 10 or 15 grand gets you kind of a entry level mill too. Like the really high end wood misers are in the 30s to $40,000 range. And a lot of the cheaper ones come from China. And anyways, it's a whole rabbit hole. And I wanted to talk a little bit about this just because, like I said earlier, you can replace the word sawmill with tractor, with haybine, with wood chipper. It doesn't really matter. These properties end up becoming these incredible make work projects and excuses to buy tons and tons of equipment. And if you're not careful, you'll end up working a 9-to-5 job in order to pay for all the equipment that allows you to operate the property, as opposed to just getting the design right on the front end. So if you look at hiring Daniel for $70 an hour for 2 days, he brings in super pro gear. Not only that, he's got a ton of experience. He looked at these logs and you can tell, like, this one's rotten. That's going to be turned into cordwood for making firewood. Hey Ro, how's it going? Roland's just going to help me paint. And so one of the other things that Daniel said was that you've got to paint the ends of the logs, which I had read, and I didn't realize how quickly we were going to have to do it. These were only cut about a week ago, and you can see they're already starting to check. And so I went out today to get some paint in order to paint the ends so that the ends dry out about the same rate as the sides. And right now they're drying out a lot faster, and so we've got to get to this pretty quickly. And so, like, that's just one example of a tip that he gave to me, which I found online, that particular one. But there's all sorts of other things that we were talking about in terms of how to cut these logs, whether to cut them into like larger cants, whether to cut them into boards, and basically how to get the most out of the timber without wasting a whole bunch of time. There's a whole other art and science to drying them out. So setting them up so that they're going to properly dry over the next year or two is really important. And so I'm not saying that I wouldn't have enjoyed figuring all that stuff out for myself. And I might still go and get a mill in the not too distant future. But at least if I use Daniel's services for a couple of years, I'm going to end up garnering a whole bunch of knowledge from him. I'm going to see if I like it before I go and drop the $10,000 to $15,000. And so, like I said, you could kind of use this example to get good at any skill. Get good at creating hay. Like, all these things that happen on a farm, all are nuanced. They all have their own techniques and skills that don't seem apparent on the front end until you get into it and you realize that you don't know anything about said subject. So I wanted to make this little video and just talk a little bit about sawmills and why we paint end grains. These logs are going to get cut up into lumber in the fall, so they're going to sit out most of the year because Daniel doesn't have time right now in the spring. He's pretty busy. He's also a carpenter, and so this will make sure that the logs are able to dry out at least somewhat uniformly between now and then, and then we will get to milling them in the fall right before winter comes. Anyhow, hopefully you found that interesting. We'll be making more videos as we go along. I'm sure that when these get milled up, we'll make a bunch of videos, and I'll make a video about Daniel's sick rig, his wood miser, and well, maybe even interview him as well. I'm sure he'll have lots of tips to share with you guys if you're interested in milling your own wood. Okay, have a great day, guys. Talk soon. Bye.